These 15 players are skyrocketing into week 14 just in time to help your fantasy team when it matters the most. Let's start at running back with Devon Achane. You got to be feeling good coming out of this game if you've held on to Achane all this time. The big worry that we saw last time when he came back from injury was the risk of re-injury. But he came out of this game healthy, scored 2 touchdowns against this Washington defense, put up a big fantasy day. Now, it's easy to get a little carried away and say, wow, look at all the touches he got. He got way more touches than Raheem Mostert. And that's true, but that's because of game script. Raheem Mostert really didn't even play in the second half. I don't even think he touched the ball in the second half. And Devon Achane did do a lot of damage on that last drive when the game was well out of hand. Even being gifted a touchdown with 2 minutes to go on 4th down. Really, Mike McDaniel? Talk about running up the score. But anyways, the biggest takeaway here is that A, he came out healthy and he looks good. We know the kind of upside this guy has on any given week. So if you held on to Achane or if you went out and bought low on him, you got to be feeling good. And you also got to be feeling good if you held on to Kyren Williams or also bought low on Kyren Williams. He led all running backs in expected fantasy points in week 13. Even in a tough matchup against the Browns, came out with a very good fantasy game. This is 2 weeks in a row. He's been great for your fantasy teams. He doesn't have the best schedule up ahead, especially this week on the road against Baltimore, but it doesn't really matter for him because of the volume and the usage he gets and the fact that teams just never stack the box against this Rams offense. He always has running lanes. This is one of the best offenses for a running back. He's got touchdown upside. He catches passes. Kyren Williams, a locked-in must-start rest of the season. And you also got to be feeling pretty good if you've got Isaiah Pacheco. Back-to-back games of over 20 fantasy points. He's clearly the guy here in this Chiefs backfield, the guy that they trust to get it done. He's caught passes recently. He's got touchdown upside. And he has a fantastic rest of the season schedule. There is no reason to think Isaiah Pacheco is not a high upside RB2 from now till the end of the season. If you got him, you're feeling good. And if you somehow held on to Chuba Hubbard, you didn't drop him, you held on to him through, all this stuff going on with Miles Sanders coming back, the coaching changes, you're probably also feeling pretty good. 25 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. That was pretty shocking. One of the most shocking results of this week. But maybe that's what we're seeing with this Panthers offense now with Frank Reich gone, this turnover at coaching staff. There's no reason to look at guys like Miles Sanders, who Frank Reich brought in, or guys like Adam Thielen, who's old and also Frank Reich brought in. We saw Jonathan Mingo be the #1 target. Chuba getting more of the work. You might as well look at these younger guys that could potentially be on your team next year and beyond. And I think that's what the Panthers are doing with Chuba. Not to mention, he's just been better than Miles Sanders most of the time. Now the downside here is he's stuck on the Panthers offense, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. But any running back getting 20-plus carries is worth a start in fantasy. And then finally, this was back from the dead week because Dameon Pierce back from the dead this week. After looking like a total bust for most of the season, getting badly outplayed by Devin Singletary, looking like he had lost his job to Devin Singletary, he took his job back. 15 touches. Singletary only had 9 touches this week. Pierce found the end zone. Again, kind of like Chuba Hubbard, though, this is not something to get super excited about because A, Devin Singletary is still somewhat involved, but B, this is not the offense you want for running backs. This is not a good running offense by any stretch. But look, if Dameon Pierce is going to retake over this backfield, he's a young back. We saw him have success last year. Maybe he can get the job done as a startable RB2 the rest of the way. Now let's move on to wide receiver. We got to start with Nico Collins. This guy's been absolutely awesome this year. And unfortunately, he got a boost this week from an injury to Tank Dell. Did not like seeing that. Tank Dell looked like he was going to be a guy skyrocketing this year. But even before that injury, Nico Collins had been great with Tank Dell. But man, without Tank Dell, he's been pretty phenomenal because in the games Tank Dell has missed this year, he's had a 31% target share and a 45% air yard share. He is clearly the #1 wide receiver here. Even with Tank Dell, he might have been the #1 wide receiver. He's a talented player. He's in year 3. He's got CJ Stroud. He's in this offense. Sure, gets a tough matchup this week against Sauce and the Jets, but after that, he gets 2 matchups against the Titans. Nico Collins looking like a locked-in, starting wide receiver for fantasy teams going forward. And then we got to talk about Christian Watson, who did Christian Watson things after looking like a total bust most of the year, dealt with that hamstring injury early, came back on fire the last 3 weeks, 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games. The last 2 games been absolutely phenomenal, but then what happened? Right at the end of the game, looked like a hamstring injury again. This is just Christian Watson being Christian Watson. It's so frustrating once you finally look like the player we drafted. We don't know the severity yet. We haven't heard any updates on it. Let's hope it was minor. Maybe it was a cramp. Let's hope for the best. But if he's back this week, you gotta love him once again because it's the New York Giants and he has a phenomenal rest of the season schedule. So if Christian Watson is healthy, fire him up with confidence the rest of the season. And you can definitely fire up Michael Pittman with confidence the rest of the season. Can we put some respect on this man's name finally? One of the most underrated players in real life and in fantasy, and I still don't think he gets the credit he deserves. We still get so many Pittman questions. Can I really trust him? Is he really this good? Yes, he's this good. Since week 5, he has scored at least 14 PPR fantasy points in every game. He's an absolute monster. He's one of the most talented real-life wide receivers, and just because he's stuck on Indy, people don't realize it. He is absolutely poised to be a locked-in, no doubt, wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. If you've got Michael Pittman, fire him up with confidence every single week. And you should be firing up Devonta Smith with confidence as well. Had a slow start to the season, but over the last 5 games, he's scored at least 14 PPR fantasy points, and he's outscored A.J. Brown in 3 straight games. And you can't say it's just Dallas Goedert being out. Sure, that has helped, but he was good the 2 weeks before Dallas Goedert got hurt as well. Devonta Smith, also one of the most talented wide receivers in the NFL, and he gets overshadowed because of A.J. Brown and because, people were scared about the size. He doesn't have that prototypical look for a wide receiver, but he's a fantastic player, and the Eagles have one of, if not the best, playoff schedules for wide receivers. Devonta Smith locked in lineups from here on out. Now, I can't say Brandon Cooks should be locked in lineups from here on out, but he has scored in 3 of the last 4 games, and he also has at least 16 PPR points in 3 of the last 4 games. And he's on the Cowboys. That right there is enough to make him fantasy relevant. Gets another great matchup this week at home against this Eagles secondary that, look, it's not very good. We just saw what Brock Purdy and these 49ers pass catchers did to this defense. This should be a very high-scoring game in Dallas at home. If you've been rolling with Brandon Cooks, or maybe he's been on your bench scoring points, I feel like this is another strong week for him. Get him in your lineups this week. And then speaking of underrated wide receivers, Courtland Sutton, definitely one of the most underrated wide receivers as well. Now, he's not as talented as Michael Pittman as far as a true, talent, technician, wide receiver, but he's still a very talented guy. But what you got to like about Courtland Sutton, he scored a touchdown in all but 3 games this year. When you look at this Denver passing attack, it's Courtland Sutton and then Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, he's not it. Sorry, Jerry Jeudy stands. Marvin Mims can't get going. The tight ends, there's nobody else really to throw to here. It's basically the Courtland Sutton show. Now, this is a low volume attack. That's why he doesn't have a ton of targets, but he's got touchdown upside every single week, and he has a great rest of season schedule. Courtland Sutton, a no doubt wide receiver 3 with upside from now till the end of the season. Moving on to quarterback, and we got to start with Brock Purdy. Somehow every single week, this guy puts up a huge fantasy game, and then you look and it's like 27 attempts. What? How did he do this? He does it because of the offense he's in. Now, look, I'm not taking anything away from Brock Purdy. You still got to get the ball to your playmakers. But he's got guys who could take a 10-yard pass and turn it into a 50-yard touchdown. And guess what? That's not going to change. So in fantasy, who cares? We don't need to debate if it's Brock Purdy or the system. Who cares? Just give me my fantasy points. 23 fantasy points in each of the last 2 games. And outside of a tough Week 16 matchup against Baltimore, his schedule is cream puff easy. Brock Purdy looks like a locked-in top 10 QB rest of the season. And I think we have to say the same thing about Jordan Love. Came through on Sunday night at home against this Chiefs defense. This is 4 straight very good games for him. After a good start to the season, looked horrible in the middle part of the year, but coming on now, and this is it. When he did that against the Chiefs at home, I'm all in now. I think Jordan Love is a no doubt QB1 in 12-team leagues going forward, a guy you can feel good about in any matchup, and really, you don't have to worry about it because they have a great rest of season schedule as well. So if you stream Jordan Love or you've been rolling with him, just keep doing it. He should be great rest of season. And I got to give credit to Matthew Stafford. I was very nervous about him this week against Cleveland, one of the best defenses, but he had that huge touchdown to Puka Nacua, looked good, threw for a couple more touchdowns. If he can come through against the Browns, you got to feel pretty good about him. He gets another test this week on the road against Baltimore. But if he's still out there on your waiver wire and you're hurting at the quarterback position, he looks like one of the best options. Came through in a tough matchup. He's got Puka. Cooper Kupp hopefully gets more healthy. Kyron out of the backfield. He's got weapons. He's in a good system. Matthew Stafford looks like a decent QB option going forward. Then finally the tight end, and at this point, Sam Laporta looks like he is absolutely matchup proof. Just keeps coming through with big game after big game. There's no reason to even doubt Sam Laporta at this point. A locked in, no doubt about it, tight end 1. Currently the tight end 3 on the season, and it feels like he's even been better than that, but that's probably because he had a slow start being a rookie and all. But rest of the season, it doesn't matter. He's so involved in this offense. He's making plays. I don't care about the matchups. I don't care about the schedule. Sam Laporta, you got him. You start him. Roll with him. He'll help you win a chip. As could another rookie tight end, Trey McBride, dominating this team in targets. He's had 9 or more targets in 3 of the last 4 games, at least 7 targets in all of those games, and he scored at least 13 PPR points in 3 of the last 4 games. In the one game he didn't, he got just under 10 PPR points. He's been an absolute monster for tight ends. Hollywood Brown now dealing with a heel injury. Michael Wilson can't get healthy. Rondell Moore, Greg Dortch. I mean, there's not a lot here. He might be their top target the rest of the season, and it's easy to forget last year he was the best tight end in this class. Now, it wasn't as good of a class as we had this year, but he was still the best one. He's an athletic guy. He's a pass-catching tight end. You got to feel good with what you've seen with Trey McBride. If you picked him up a few weeks ago, just keep rolling with him. He should be great. And just keep rolling with us in Week 14 because we're here to help you win. Everything you need this week can be found in our Week 14 playlist right here.